Me and my husband adopted, well, our daughter. And now she's finding out all these years later about her biological parents, and this is all happening just a few days short of her wedding day, which leads to be an absolute chaotic mess, and I'm going to tell you all about it. Well, let me tell you about the audacity of my screwball of a daughter. I swear, I'm not even particularly religious, mind you. I've probably committed more sins than any world's religion would allow a woman to commit. So, you could say I'm not exactly religious at heart. But I do believe in science, so, well, if you consider that kind of a religion. Anyways, yes, I called my daughter a screwball, and trust me, I have a perfectly valid explanation for that. I hope to stop soon. The only thing I'm unsure of is how to make her realize it. I mean, I have the resources to guide her, but the question is, how do I do it? Hey, this is Bailey, I'm 51 female, and I live with my husband Adam, and my daughters, Kyla and Nancy. I have a fulfilling life, and I'm not going to pretend to be all prude and act shy about it. Financially, I've always had a bit more than most of my neighbors, not that I'm more privileged, but I've managed to build a secure life that gives me the freedom to teach people a lesson if they really seem to need it. I'm sorry if I come across as a vindictive type, more than your typical old lady, but my circumstances have pushed me to be a bit more brash than I ever intended to be. And let me tell you, those circumstances, as you might have guessed from my earlier mention of my daughter, revolve entirely around Kyla. Now, how can a 23-year-old woman be such a pain in an old woman's life, you might wonder? Well, I have quite a story for you. Now, let's dive into the most obvious of things, which I'm pretty sure you picked up from the title. Kyla's not my biological daughter, she was adopted. It's been quite a while now, so there's no need for a lengthy tale. I mean, who has the time to sit down and read through a 2-decade-old story, right? But I'll give you a condensed version. Kyla was just 2.5 years old when Adam and I found her, and childcare. Her birth parents, due to their financial struggles, could not care for her anymore, so they were hoping somebody would step in. Well, as luck would have it, Adam and I were looking for a baby at that time, and I can already see what you're thinking when you read my next sentence. But the truth is, we've been trying for a baby ourselves, and it was just not happening. And there was Kyla right in front of us, so the decision did not require much thinking. 2 years down the line, our first biological child, Nancy, came into the picture. Life has a funny way of working out, does it not? Regardless, we've always tried our best to not let Kyla or Nancy feel bad about this situation. For the most part, it's actually worked. In the early years, Adam and I did stay in touch with Kyla's biological parents. We wanted to maintain a connection for Kyla's sake, but as you can imagine, with 2 little ones on our hands, our time got swallowed up pretty quickly, and we eventually drifted away from the routine. There were occasional meetings, but nothing extraordinary. I mention this because it's essential to remember that we know them. They would inquire about Kyla sometimes, but mostly they were preoccupied with their own tough lives. Kyla remained oblivious to all of this until much later, and from that point on, her behavior started to change. But hey, isn't that what you would expect from a child? Curiosity is a powerful thing. It can either lead you to the brightest chapters of your life or the darkest ones. In Kyla's case, well, it turned out to be the latter. As a child, Kyla had these quirky mannerisms that set her apart from Nancy. She would be a bit rebellious at times, which I have to admit did not always seem like a bad thing to me, but boy, could she be endlessly rude. I'm not sure where she picked up the attitude from, but Adam and I tried our best to steer her away from it. Nancy, on the other hand, despite being curious, always had more manners than Kyla. As they grew up, they pretty much stayed true to their childhood selves. Kyla's behavior did get a bit more risque, but we kind of expected that from her, and maybe it's partly because of that we're not particularly surprised by the way she acted when she found out about her adoption. Suddenly, she just had a laundry list of complaints, and they seemed to come out of nowhere. Even though her biological parents were not all that keen on meeting her, whether out of embarrassment or something else, she insisted on it, and after meeting them, she changed. She became a bit more distant, and I guess deep down, a part of me, well, we saw it coming. Then came the first boyfriend, and when she went through her first heartbreak, oh boy, she spilled the beans of her biological parents first. We decided to let it slide, even though it felt like a dagger to the heart, but when she got her third boyfriend, the only one that she was planning to marry, she did not even bother to tell us first. That hurt even more. Do you know where I found out? I overheard a conversation she was having with him over the phone. I'll be honest, it was not a pleasant conversation to overhear, and I did not even tell Adam about it, knowing how deeply it would hurt him. So, to keep the peace at home, I just bit my tongue. Things have been just spiraling downhill since then, and this is the recent twist of events that's brought me here to talk to you guys about this. I'm just sharing my story, pondering whether I should take a step to teach her something, and I'm hoping you can lend your thoughts on the matter, so here we go. The guy Kyla wants to marry, well, he's just not good. Plain and simple. I cannot exactly put my finger on it, but it's crystal clear to my aging senses that he cares way too much about his image and online presence. Even though we have not crossed paths much, I've spotted some cracks in the way that he sometimes treats Kyla. If this is not worrisome enough, let us talk about his anger issues. I still remember the huge blowout when they had a few weeks ago over something utterly trivial. Oh, and I did not mention he's an influencer. Now don't get me wrong, but most of these folks strike me as a tad pitiful, and he is absolutely no exception. He's chasing after something that is never guaranteed. I mean, he has around 21,000 followers on his TikTok, a couple videos with some millions of views, and honestly, I don't like a single one of them. But hey, who am I to pass judgment, right? Although it's true that he has a real penchant for materialism and flaunting it. That's something Kyla's going to have to learn. It's not exactly ideal in a partner. Because of so many issues with the boy's character, Adam and I have constantly warned her about him. In return, she's done something quite unexpected in her circumstances. She retaliated by making sure meetings between her boyfriend and us were limited. That's one of the major reasons why the engagement party turned out to be so darn awkward for us. Adam and I had to leave the party early, actually. It did not end there, though. Apparently, our advice did not mean much to her, and it simply hurt her pride, and to get back at us, she did not invite us to her bridal shower. Okay, now this was a huge blow to our pride and everything else in between, and I'm not gonna lie, she's been excluding me from her wedding preparations and whatnot already. But this is a real eye-opener. It made me wonder if my daughter even likes us at all that much anymore. Honestly, most of the time, Adam and I are completely in the dark about what's going on in her life. Unlike her biological parents, who seem to be in the loop all the time. I mean, I don't understand. Where did I go wrong? I cannot for the life of me figure out where I went wrong. What did I do so that she always keeps her bio parents in the loop about everything, when we're so left in the dark? Why is it that when I check her Instagram, I see her biological parents in her posts, photos, and mentions? For some important pre-wedding preparation, something has gone wrong. Her wedding is several months away, and she has not asked for my help even once. All she and her fiance have requested is a whopping $50,000 in cash, which we've handed over for the engagement party, along with future promises of needing even more money. The wedding's designed at a luxurious venue, which means Kyla wants to be the grand and memorable one, and you'd think that should, well, give her a reason to treat us a bit respectfully, but no. Nothing of that kind happened. I'll tell you why I was angry at the beginning of the post now. Even though the wedding is in several months from now, Kyla and her fiance have released their invitation cards. Now, here's the kicker. Adam and I did not receive ours until much later. And what is even more amusing that it was not Kyla who shared the news with us, it was her biological parents. Although they're still not doing well, they've done their best to stay in contact with Kyla, which means I'm losing my daughter. Have I made a situation understandable? Let me know. I'm upset with her, and I'm really upset right now. Top comments from the original post. Comment 1. I've always thought that adoption cases are sorta sensitive, but your stories prove that I was right about it, even though I've never met an adopted person in my life. I'm still sorry about the way your daughter's treating you. I get she's found her bio parents, but come on, you raised her. She's so hard-headed right now. Her obsession with her bio parents is weird. And I also wanted to ask if she knows that you know her biological parents. I mean, she surely does, right? How else did you even, get the invitation card? Comment number 2. Take back the money. I'm telling you this will be enough to teach her much of a lesson. I know this well because I've done the same for my son. He learned his lesson and changed as a person. Thank goodness for the small mercies. I don't know if your daughter will learn her lesson, but trying won't hurt, I promise. Besides, it's fun to show them their plays, and I'm just going to say one thing. If your kids have turned out to be monsters, it's 100% because of you. Goodbye. Update number 1. Well, it's finally happened, just as I'd feared ever since I first noticed that hesitation in Kyla's behavior. Remember when I mentioned that Kyla hardly ever bothered to keep me in the loop about what's going on in her personal life? Well, it turns out there's a reason for all that. After all, it sounds utterly unreasonable to me, though, but for some inexplicable reason, she's completely just buying into it. And that, my friends, is one of the key reasons why my dear daughter has decided to uninvite both me and my husband from her wedding. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Kyla wants neither me nor my husband at her wedding ceremony at all. In her eyes, the reason's quite straightforward. She's worried. Her biological parents would feel awkward and embarrassed if we were present there. Can you believe it? Because honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, guys. Well, this whole thing hit me like a bolt out of the blue, I'll tell you that much. I distinctively remember working on my presentation when an email suddenly popped up on my screen. It was addressed to be, by Kyla. If I had not seen her name, I might have just let it become one of the thousands of emails sitting in my account. But curiosity got the best of me, and I clicked on it. Kyla did not waste any time being around the bush, and her very first sentence was something I will not forget anytime soon, so brace yourself, people. Bailey, I don't think I want you at my wedding anymore. Please tell Adam he's not invited either. I just don't want my real parents to get embarrassed by all the questions from my friends or even family members from your side. I'll definitely send you sweets, though. XOXO. Can you believe it? I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, guys. Let me just say it straight out. What the actual heck? The sheer audacity of it, all the emotions that rushed through me at that moment. People, I'm telling you, I can hardly put it into words. It's a struggle to even get to describe how I feel right now. And after that email, there was nothing else. No call, not a follow-up message, nothing. It was just that simple email, and if I had not clicked on it, I would not have even known that she wanted from me. To say that I was hurt just doesn't cut it. I'm absolutely furious right now. She has not just insulted me, but my husband as well, and I don't care what anyone has to say about adopted kids and their feelings. This is not the way to treat the people who gave you a new life and simply allowed you to grow. It's one thing to be different, but her behavior is just plain disrespectful. I'm not even proud of what I've done for her. It's just about basic respect and manners. It's also about principles. And let's be real here. If her biological parents are going to be embarrassed, then let me ask you this. How is that our fault? They made the choice not to raise her because of their financial situation, so how is that our mess? Now, years later, they're back, and they don't seem to be doing much for Kyla, but she's sticking to them. So, once again, how is that our fault? Can someone please explain what I'm doing wrong? Now, I could understand this whole situation if we've treated her poorly because she was adopted or if we were abusive towards her, but I can swear on science that I've never laid my hands on her unless it was absolutely necessary, which only happened when she was being particularly violent, aggressive, or rude. So, for her to assume her biological parents would feel embarrassed, well, people, after a brief meeting with her, I decided to reach out to them to see if she was right. And this is where things start to get a bit interesting. Her biological parents were completely unaware of Kyla's decision. She had not informed them about it at all, and even though they loved Kyla, they were eager to make amends for the past, and they stood firm by my side. They recognized that what Kyla was doing was wrong and disrespectful, and they did not want to be a part of it. Her biological parents were eager to show their support, even though I was handling the majority of the wedding finances. They set aside around $20,000 to give her gifts and help with other preparations. In addition to that, they've been generously gifting her things throughout this entire period. I will not go into too much detail about that, but they both worked odd jobs throughout the week, and let me tell you, each job paid so little, it's evident in the way that they lived their lives. Nevertheless, they were determined to support their daughter in any way they could. I'm not entirely sure what exactly changed their minds, but I received a call from her biological parents just a few days ago. They made it crystal clear, and I distinctively remember their words, that they did not think it would be appropriate for them to attend the wedding if we were not invited. Their solution: they've decided not to go to the wedding either. This means that Kyla will be hosting her wedding without a single one of their parents present. It's almost like karma. Something I believe in, and something that she might very well deserve. But there is more to it, guys. One of the comments I read suggested a way to teach her a lesson, and I must admit that I've considered the idea. You see, you mentioned I should not provide her with funding for the wedding, and well, guess what? I've decided to do exactly that. Now, in case you're thinking this might be a little too harsh, let me remind you that she is marrying an influencer. Both of their worlds revolve around exposure, and the wedding was planned to be grand and extraordinary, something that, well, would make anyone regret not being there. I'm not entirely sure what else lies ahead for her, but this feels like a good starting point. And for those who may think I've not tried talking to her, I almost certainly have. I mean, that meeting was actually the reason I reached out to her real parents. I will not apologize for being frank about it. It is what it is. And to the person who suggested it's all because of parents, well, although I will not deny parents' role in a child's life, I'm confident that you will learn your own lessons in due time. I should be back with another update soon enough. Until then, keep your imaginations bright. Update number 2. Well. Where do we leave off with the previous update? I have some updates for you beautiful people. To all those who have been criticizing me for coming down hard on my daughter, well, it's clear you have not dealt with her, somebody like her at least, and it really shows. Do you think I don't feel terrible about having to resort to such extreme measures to get a message across? I've raised her for 2 decades, and this is not a short amount of time. Even though Nancy is 2 years younger than her, I've never treated them differently. Never. They've had equal responsibilities when they were at home and equal opportunities in life, and this has never been about one being adopted and the other not. It's always been about their attitude. The only true saddening thing about this entire situation is that we've come to this point. It really should not have, but hey, it has. Well, now that we're already here, why not just go along with it, right? It's not like I can turn back time and have that heart-to-heart talk with her I want to, hoping that she'll miraculously understand me this time. No, we all know that it's not going to happen, so let us dive into Kyla's wedding. Or what you might call a total disaster. Buckle up, people, this is going to be one bumpy ride. In the previous update, I let you all know that the 4 of us has decided not to, go, and not to foot the bill for the wedding. I've already done my part for her engagement party, but I made the choice to step back for the wedding. Her biological parents followed suit and decided not to contribute as well. The result? They had such a meager budget that they had to slash their wedding plans drastically. You could see it in the last-minute venue change because they could not afford to pay the remaining half of the payment. There was no fancy band or extravagant cuisine from that posh place that we have initially chosen. The quality of the wedding took a severe hit, and despite it all, I held out hope that she would find a way to pull it off somehow. Well, she is a 23-year-old woman, right? But lo and behold, none of that really happened, mostly because she seems to lack any sense of planning and money management, from what I can gather. Her fiance is not exactly a financial wizard either. Nonetheless, they somehow managed something, at least from what I've heard. And now, you might be thinking, did the last-minute changes affect the wedding? You bet they did. But this is not the whole story. You already know that none of our four of us attended the wedding. Kyla and maybe even her fiance knew about our absence, but they were in the dark about her biological parents. But as fate would have it, news of our non-attendance spread like fire. The family knew about it, and so did their friends, and eventually Kyla got wind of it. She threw a fit right in front of her parents and tried her best to convince them to be there. Unfortunately for her, they stood their ground and declined. However, the damage was already done within my family and friends circle. The word had spread about, Adam and me not being at the wedding, and the end result was quite straightforward. Very few of the invited guests actually showed up. Although, yes, her friends were there, this means that they all the effort they collectively put into adjusting things for last-minute changes did not hold much value on the big day. Apart from that, all these changes and sudden budget cuts for the wedding seemed to bring out the absolute worst in Kyla's fiance. I wanted Kyla to learn a lesson, but this went beyond my expectation. Just imagine the scene. And now add his inflated ego and desperate need for attention into the mix. Apparently, he had invited some of his followers to the wedding, but given the circumstances, the event turned into a source of humiliation for him. In a fit of anger and tears, he suddenly, rudely stormed out of the wedding. Yes, you read that right. He walked out of his own wedding. Which means the wedding did not even properly conclude. It was just a mess from the start. And to make matters worse, his fans thought that he was the victim here. They started sharing stories and posts online sympathizing with him, and blaming Kyla for ruining their, quote, favorite internet boy's important day. This is a good chance she received much hate from this. I'm unsure if her fiancé did anything to protect her from it. I tried to reach out to Kyla, but she's not answered my calls. Instead, she went ahead to send me a long, rude text message. The only person who really seemed to benefit from this whole debacle was perhaps Kyla's fiancé. I checked out his TikTok and his follower count crossed the 100,000 mark. He's not addressed this issue on his profile yet, but considering the number of people curious about it, I believe that day is not too far away. Honestly, I think this should be the end of my post. I do want to thank everybody for the comments. Update number 3. I have to admit, I did not really want to write another follow-up update, but here I am, and circumstances have kind of pushed me into it. It's been quite some time since our last chit-chat, and I thought that might be the end of it all, but my younger daughter's wedding happened. And I had an accidental encounter with Kyla after such a long time. Yeah, you heard that right, Kyla and I were not really in touch for quite a while after the disastrous event. So, instead of diving into all the nitty-gritty details, I'll give you a condensed version of the latest happenings. So, after her wedding went down the drain, Kyla completely cut contact with me. No matter how many times I tried to reach out to mend things, she resisted. Eventually, I decided to stop pushing, and I did not want to be a bother. I believe that she was just smart enough to come back for a talk when she was ready. But as time passed, our communication dwindled. I would have had an absolutely no clue of her whereabouts if not for her biological parents. They informed me about the video her ex-fiancé posted on his TikTok account. I checked it out, and in the video, he portrayed himself as a victim, announcing that he had severed all ties with his ex-fiancé. He even apologized for things he had no control over, basically making himself out to be the good guy. And you know what? It worked. He got tons of supportive comments, and Kyla, she got her fair share of hatred in the comments. In the end, she had to make her account private, and they have to actually separate. And he's also started dating one of his fans just to encourage their fantasies. After the tumultuous period, Kyla started her first job as a cashier at the supermarket. She did not live with any of us, and even went out to rent a small home. It was not the nicest place, but she managed to make it work. Later on, she joined a catering service, and now here is where our paths cross again. Nancy was getting married to her girlfriend, and we had arranged for a nice venue with catering services. It just so happened that Kyla was working for that catering company. It was an accidental reunion, albeit a very brief one. She still resembled her former self, but you could say time had taken its toll on her. I immediately tried to reconcile with her, but she refused any conversation. Nancy's wedding went off without a hitch, but I knew I had lost Kyla. And for what? She was gradually losing contact with her other parents and basically had nobody by her side. From her appearance, it was evidence that she was not doing well financially either. Basically, she's going through a rough patch, but her pride and ego have prevented her from seeking growth or help. I'm uncertain about any future interactions we might have, but I suppose this is truly the end of it all. I want to express my gratitude to all of you for your support and presence throughout the journey. I'm sure someday it'll get better for us all. Top comments from the final update. Comment number 1. Struggling, broken, proud. Your daughter needs to get over her darn attitude. This does not look good for her. I honestly don't know what else I was expecting, but it's good that she got cheated on for the same reason you warned her against. Look, the issue is that kids need to listen and understand why some things are said. Okay, it's your life, whatever, but we've been in your position once, you know. That accounts for something. Listen to our advice. Comment number 2. Your daughter is one example of how people ruin themselves by falling into traps made by themselves for basically no reason. What did your dumb daughter get? Nothing. She's a loser. And what else exactly? Hello? A ruined day that was supposed to be the best day of her life. She should have at least had a decent conversation with you all. I'm sure you guys would have had a solution. She's dumb. She must know she's dumb. Did you tell her that? Alright guys, the comments section was not happy about this story. They were basically all making fun of Kyla, saying how could you abandon the only parents that gave you a chance, raised you, supported you, financially gave you money, everything, and just go after your biological parents so hardcore to the point where all 4 of them are cutting you off. Guys, I do want to hear from you guys. If you were in Kyla's position and you find out, oh my gosh, I have biological parents that aren't the parents I thought they were this whole time, do you have a little sympathy for her position? Or do you think, like most of the comments said, you are in the wrong, Kyla. You should have been there for your parents who raised you and not just abandon them and ghost them. Let me know which side you guys are on. Drop your opinion in the comment section. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day. I hope you enjoyed today's story. I'll see you tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!